Here is my central thesis for which His Excellency Dr. Goodluck invited me to share with you. My central thought that I've struggled with for over 20 years is around the question of why is it that over the last 500 years, the rest of the world has moved forward, but one continent out of the 6 settled continents has not, and that is Africa. We have very many education systems across the world, and it is a complete consensus that we must educate all children. So the proposition that I want to present today has nothing against the idea that all children must be educated. So we must begin by agreeing that every child, 100%, must be provided education. So that is premise number one. 100% of all children must be provided education. This is a human right. It's part of the 1948 Declaration of Human Rights. On top of that idea of presenting education to everyone, there is another idea. This second idea has been followed on all of the 6 settled human continents except one. There is only one continent where the second idea has not been followed. Let me go back to the first idea. Idea number one, you must educate all children. We all agree. Everybody does that. All the 6 settled continents do it. When you move to idea number 2, there is only one continent that does not do it, and that is Africa. So if you have wondered about the following, if you have wondered why all African countries must import foreign companies to build our roads and railways, all African countries must import foreign companies to mine our minerals, all African countries must import foreign experts to tell us where the minerals are, even when the minerals are behind your house. All African countries must invite foreign companies to refine our minerals. All African countries must invite foreign companies to generate our electricity. All African countries must invite foreign companies to run and establish our telecommunications. All African companies export raw materials instead of manufactured materials. All machinery in Africa, all advanced electronics, everything that we admire is imported. If you want to reflect on why, it's because we are the only continent that does not implement idea number 2. We're all implementing idea number 1, which is education for all children. But there is idea number 2. This second idea, which the UK, the great home of the Industrial Revolution, established 900 years ago when Oxford University was established, and 800 years ago when Cambridge was established, is an old idea. The idea is more than 900 years old. And this is the idea that there is nothing undemocratic. There is nothing undemocratic about acknowledging that God in his wisdom made some people 6 feet tall and some people 5 feet tall. God in his wisdom made my brother, and this is a true story, a mathematician. He did not make me a mathematician. If I sit in the same class as my brother James, I cannot compete. If you take me to the same training camp as Eliud Kipchoge, Kipchoge will not benefit because I will bring his ability to run down, and I will not benefit because I will die even though both of us are runners. If you take me to the same football academy as Mbappe, Mbappe's standards will come down and I will die in the field because I do not have the same talent as Mbappe for football. This second idea is the idea that in thinking about leadership and democracy, we must take into account the fact that God created diversity. God created people like my brother James, who can do a lot of mathematics very rapidly. God created people like my brother, my new brother from another mother, Professor Emeka, who speaks 9 languages while I speak only 3. Okay? Professor Emeka, who is a close friend of mine, is from this country. He never went to secondary school because his parents had no money. He never went to undergraduate. He went straight from primary school to postgraduate in the United States of America and has a PhD in computer science. Okay? So let me now say to you, ladies and gentlemen, what idea number 2 is. Idea number 2 is that if Africa is to make any progress at all, it must do what other countries do, not what other countries tell us. Let us not do what they tell us. Let us do what they do. And I'll mention a few examples rapidly in a rather random order because my time is highly limited. Let's begin again with the United Kingdom, the home of the great industrial revolution that changed the world. The country that conquered ancient Benin. Okay, in 1897, although Benin was extremely advanced, in 1897, the British were able to come to this sacred ancient city and conquer it because they had advanced in knowledge. And they had made better weapons than the weapons of Benin. They had made better weapons than the weapons of China. So in 1839, they were able to arrive in China and take over Hong Kong, okay, and create the Opium Wars because they had advanced beyond the rest of us. So you ended up with the British Empire. Why? Because the technology was more advanced. Now, how do you get advanced technology? The answer is idea number 2. What is idea number 2? As much as you must educate all children, you must also set up special schools for the most gifted and the most talented children. If you attempt to educate the most gifted and most talented children in the same classroom as people like me, they will drop out. It will be too boring for them. They will become drunks. They will be declared misbehaving. True story. There's a child in my village. He's called Victor. I set up a library in the village in Western Kenya based on an old idea from Professor Ngugi wa Thiong'o, which says there should be a library in every village. Again, all the 6 settled continents have libraries almost in every village and town. Only one continent does not, and that continent is Africa. Victor is in grade 1. Victor is already doing grade 4 and grade 5 mathematics. He knows more mathematics than his teacher. Okay? If I did not set up the library, Victor would already be losing his mind. So what Victor does, he basically runs out of class and spends his time in the library studying mathematics. Okay. What other countries have done is to set up schools for people like Victor, people like Professor Emeka, people like my brother, the mathematician, and many of us know people like that. That is why If you take the next example, and I'm doing this somewhat randomly, let me just jump forward because this speech has been rearranged because of time. I'm going to jump forward to an interesting illustration of what happens when certain decisions are made. Now, ladies and gentlemen, listen to this story. There's a country that was as poor as Nigeria in 1947. That country is called India. India is no longer as poor as Nigeria. Nigeria goes to India for technology. Kenya goes to India for technology. America goes to India for technology. Now listen to this list. Just listen, ladies and gentlemen. The CEO of Microsoft, which is one of the largest companies in the world, the CEO of the American company Microsoft is Mr. Satya Nadella. He was born and educated in India. The CEO of Google, and we're all Googling all the time, is Mr. Sundar Pichai. He was born and educated in India. The CEO of IBM is Mr. Arvind Krishna. He was born and educated in India. The CEO of Adobe, the graphics giant, is Mr. Shantanu Narayan. He was born and educated in India. The CEO of Starbucks was born and educated in India. Is Mr. Laxman Narasimhan. The dean of the world's most prestigious business school, which influences the whole world, which tells us it's responsible for all the good things and all the bad things. That's Harvard University. The dean of the business school of Harvard University is Professor Srikant Datar, born and educated in India. How is this possible? This is possible because in 1945, before the formation of the new Republic of India, which became independent in 1947, Nehru sat down with his team and said, we are poor. How can we become rich? And the answer was, yes, we shall educate all Indians, but we shall form 4 schools to educate the genetic accidents. Those people who read 1 book a day while the rest of us read 1 book a month. People like my friend Okafo, whom I met at university in America. He had come from Enugu. Okafo arrived having memorized all of Nelcon. For those of you who remember the physics text Nelcon. Okay. Okafo did not need to go to class. He only needed to take his exams. Okay. So ladies and gentlemen, what India did in 1945 in its discussions and then implemented in 1947 is they created schools for Okafo, while we let Okafo stay drunk because he cannot sit in our ordinary classes. They are too poor. He knows more than the teacher. That is idea number 2. If this continent is to rise at all, every kingdom, every county, every town, every city, every local government area must have at least 1 secondary school, 1, for the genetic accidents, for the people who can make rockets. These people exist in your village. They are walking barefoot and they will become alcoholics. And we usually call them witch doctors because they see what we cannot see. True story. In December, I was at home in Amagoro, Busia County, Kenya. I met a boy. His name is Sharton. carrying jerrycans of water, and schools had opened. I said to him, what's the problem? Why are you not in school? He had trouble speaking because his brain does not do ordinary language, it does mathematics. So I asked him, did you go to grade 8? He said yes. How many points did you get? The points he gave me were so high, I told him, go get the report. I don't believe this. He brings the report to me. I look at his scores. They were so high, I decided to put him in my car and ask him a few questions. So I asked him, true story, I said, tell me, Sheraton, what is 0 divided by 9? He answered correctly. He said it is 0. Then I said, but Sheraton, what is 9 divided by 0? He looked at me and kept quiet, and he said, Professor, it's not possible. And I asked him why. He explained to me, Sheraton on his own already discovered the concept of infinity, walking barefoot in the village. I immediately took Sheraton and paid fees to go to one of our high schools. He arrived late 2 days before the exam. He had the highest score in mathematics on arrival. Okay. When he came back for the holiday a month later, I met with him at the library. I asked him, how was school? He said to me, it's too easy. Okay. So I asked him, what are you doing currently? He said, I'm very happy I discovered a book here. So I asked him to show me the book, Calculus. He's in what we call in Kenya Form 1, grade 9. Ladies and gentlemen, all the continents of the world have implemented idea number 1, including Africa. There is only one continent that has not implemented idea number 2. It's Africa. If this continent is to rise at all, and I'm repeating myself, every town must have a special high school for the most gifted children. And those children will come from the poorest families and the richest families. This is democracy. This is how you lift the poor. You lift the poor by taking their children whom God has given gifts and putting them in special schools. The way that my friend Ngugi wa Thiong'o tells me that he had no idea when one of his teachers came and held him and said, you are going to Alliance High School. He said he arrived in Alliance, he was in shock. He had never seen such a thing. He did not know that you could have a room full of books. That's Ngugi wa Thiong'o talking to me. And Ngugi today is considered one of the world's greatest living writers because he went to a school called Alliance, which the British created for genius kids, which we are now killing. I will stop within the next 6 minutes. Ladies and gentlemen, again, I'm just running around my paper because I have to cut it down. Let me just mention a few statistics. Now, these statistics, for thoughtful Africans, you will need some whiskey tonight. It will be difficult to sleep. There are 3 organizations in the world that rank universities. And these are the Times Higher Education ranking of world universities, the QS ranking of world universities, and the Shanghai Academic ranking of world universities. According to these 3 ranking organizations, and by the way, how do they rank? The ranking is based on 1, research productivity. 2, the ratio of students to professors. 3, number of patents produced. 4, endowment dollars, how much money does the university have? 5, selectivity, how selective is the university? Based on these rankings, our continent, which has 1.5 billion people, 54 countries, not one of our universities appears in the top 100 universities in the world. Not even the University of Cape Town. The University of Cape Town was among the top 100 until we took over the control of South Africa. It's no longer among the top 100. Now listen to this, ladies and gentlemen. Singapore, which has a population of 5 million, has 2 universities among the top 100. South Korea, which was poorer than Ghana in 1960, has 5 universities among the top 100. If you're wondering why South Korea could summon African presidents to their headquarters. South Korea, population 52 million, 5 universities among the top 100. That is why you end up with Samsung. That's why you end up with LG. That's why you end up with Kia. That's why you end up with Control. That's why you end up with a GDP of 1.7 trillion, while Kenya's GDP is only 113 billion. Let me mention a few more of these statistics. And please feel free to stop me. Now listen to this, and you can double check it on your phone later. The World Intellectual Property Organization, which registers inventions, and remember we're standing in Benin. In this city, 2,000 years ago, at the time of the birth of Jesus Christ, Africans had discovered iron. They were smelting it in Benin. 2,000 years ago. Okay? 500 years ago, right here in Edo, people discovered how to mix copper with tin to make bronze. That is 500 years ago. Today, we are discovering nothing. Now, for those of you who have read the book A Bend in the River by V.S. Naipaul, this is what V.S. Naipaul, this is how it opens, and it's about Africa. Those men who allow themselves to become nothing let me see if I can actually read you the quote directly, because it actually captures a lot of what has happened. And I'll come back to this very quickly. And if I don't find the quote, I will somehow pull it out of my head in the next few seconds. Okay, I found it, okay. This is Naipaul in A Bend in the River. The world is what it is. Those men who are nothing or allow themselves to become nothing have no place in it. If we don't take idea number 2 seriously, your great-grandchildren will become nothing. We shall be recolonized and re-enslaved. Let me quickly Let me take you back to WIPO. And I would rather actually read it directly. And if I can't read it directly, I'll pull it out of my head somehow. Okay, now listen to this, ladies and gentlemen. Discoveries. When you discover anything in your universities or in your research clusters, you have to register a patent. Israel, the country of Israel, which has a population of 9 million, which is half of the population of Lagos, 9 million. Now remember, they give aid to Kenya and to Zambia and to Nigeria and to South Africa. How many are they? 9 million. Israel in 2022, according to the World Intellectual Property Organization, registered 17,327 discoveries, patents, 17,327. Nigeria, with a population of over 220 million, registered 16. Ghana registered 11. Zambia 14. Egypt 866. All the 54 countries of Africa, with a population of over 1.5 billion, registered less discoveries than Israel. Okay. All of us together cannot compete with 9 million people. 9. Reason, idea number 2. When it comes to research publications in science and technology and other fields, the whole of Africa has only 2%. And 90% of the 2% come from one country. Can you guess which one? South Africa. Because that's the only country that has a university among the top 200. And it's the only country that has universities that appear among the top 300. At the very top, you have UCT and you have WITS. Okay. I will stop very soon. Okay. Okay, so I'll mention a few more stories with apologies for people who have to go to the airport. I will mention a few more stories with serious apologies. Let me jump to something else. Talking about leadership. The United States of America, which is a democracy and a champion of free markets, is heavily subsidizing semiconductors for artificial intelligence and technology. Heavily subsidizing, literally giving billions of dollars to companies. You give the company money, okay? That is free markets in the United States. Lots of money going into agriculture, semiconductors, automobiles, electric automobiles. That's the US. China, where we import almost everything, is heavily subsidizing industry, openly, billions of dollars into batteries and EVs. Every continent is heavily supporting their industries except one continent. Can you guess which one?